I'm gonna start this with, I need help. This game has been living in my mind rent-free from the day it came out. Saeko has corrupted my head, and I feel like the only way to get it out of my mind is if I Roku Basilisk it and force it onto others. So I'm going to talk about this interesting but unsettling game. However, quick heads up, this review will have spoilers because if I don't say everything I'm thinking of, I might just explode. Before we get into the story, I did want to focus on that inspiration for the art style, those being Valhalla and milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. Funny enough, I've never actually heard of that second title, but looking at it, I can see the inspiration. I might need to give it a look sometime, but Valhalla I'm pretty familiar with, if my shrine has anything to say about it at least. The game's art style and music is honestly the strongest thing going for it. A lot of lo-fi beats and very chill music that I've been listening to in my spare time, but also some creepy, unsettling music, especially the game over screen. The pixel art is masterfully done and captures the size and surroundings, although it's really flexed when it comes to Saeko. Seeing her movements when studying and even the scenes outside of the room, like when you're shopping with her and the ocean scene, all beautifully done. One of my hyperfixations is Saeko's eyes, mainly from when you die. The last frame before it happens, I think perfectly pictures the game. It's a stare that goes right through you, it's cold and uncaring, and it makes sense she doesn't see your life as valuable. I mean, the theme soon after is literally called Discarded. I honestly don't think it would have been as good if the art style wasn't stylized the way that it is. It just goes to show, giving your game identity will get people's attention. But enough before I get too hyperfixated, let's get into the actual game now. Let's start with the basics. You're Rin, a regular guy who suddenly shrinks, but thankfully is saved by a woman named Saeko. But not only that, you have also forgotten your memory, which she says she'll help you with, on top of finding a way to grow you back, and invites him to her world. A little space for the other tiny people inside her table drawer. Day 1 acts like a tutorial on what to expect. For the most part, you get familiar with the people and eventually do your first act, which leads to someone's death. And with a simple accident, you're left to become the supervisor of Saeko's little world. Every day, Saeko will bring 1 or maybe 2 people to hang out with, usually leading to that person's death. It's a somewhat linear level of storytelling, mostly due to some characters' appeal levels being too low, so it's impossible to get them to 50 without failing to meet Saeko's expectations, leading to your doom. This section is mainly just talking between the people, fulfilling their requests as the supervisor, and deciding on who will become the next sacrifice. Personally, I do think this is the weakest part of the game. It just feels like it's just missing that one thing that will make it perfect. I can't put my finger on it, but it's maybe just more managing their health and appeal. But the people you do meet are pretty cool. Kina and Chio are my personal favorites. Kina because she's just there for the ride and just says how she feels, going out with a bang if you keep her alive for 5 days. And Chio since she's the one who's been stuck there the longest and knows a lot more than she's letting on, caring for you, which makes sense at the later end of the game. This will be the key spoilers, but the game can be seen in its 3 acts. The acts are split between days. Day 1 to day 3 is the first act, getting used to the world that you now live in, and how the mechanics work, finishing off with shopping for earrings of Saeko. But you can choose to get a nice beanie if your game is strong enough. Day 4 to 6 are Act 2. This is when the game gets interesting, as suddenly a girlfriend from your past appears, but you have no memory and Chio doesn't like it since you're not a virgin. Sad times, I know. But she's the key to the 3 endings you can get, as the 6th day makes you choose between either Chio or her, or you can just go with the 3rd option and, well, you know. This act ends with the ocean, where your ending is sealed. And finally, the final act, day 7 and 8, where an investigator comes sniffing around and is thusly shrunk. After this, you have one final conversation with Saeko, and the paper trail she finally left catches up to her, and you get your ending. But more on them later. Getting back to gameplay, however, once your duties for making a worthy sacrifice are complete, you go to the second and most intense part of the game, the conversation with Saeko. She's not like the people you talk during the day. She's gigantic, imposing, with red eyes that stare and calculate you. You need to be in your best behavior. If you talk too much, she doesn't like your answer, or worse, not respond when you're asked a question. There's other things that happen during this time, like going shopping with Saeko, and of course, the turning point of fate. the ocean scene, but I'll talk more about that later. If you somehow survive the night, you're rewarded with being able to use her phone. You have all sorts of things you can do, like save and load, check emails, and most importantly, Tsukubo, the final. It's a skateboarding game that is very short but super fun. It reminds me of the bullet hell in Valhalla, but just like that one, I suck at it personally. But the gameplay is very basic to get the skateboard to the top. But be careful of the flowers as... Other than that, it has a really cool detail that if you click send messages or phone, this happens. But yeah, that's the gist of the gameplay. It's really short, however, around 2 to 4 hours, which is a little bit of a letdown, honestly, but the little bits and pieces makes up for it somewhat. Like all the cute and goofy interactions with the other characters. I think my favorite is just watching them do little things, like the spinning top, Kina singing her little heart out before she's eaten, characters absolutely mowing down food around about their size. It's the little interactions that make the game feel special. It's why I like Valhalla so much. Not to mention that each ending has their own special title screen. Genocide has the city burning on a notebook. Atonement, Saeko is on the table in her tiny form. And the suicide ending, she's not there, for obvious reasons. Another neat detail in the title, she follows your mouse when it's going to click on buttons, and she's not too happy if you try and quit. But since we're here talking about her, Saeko is a very interesting character. Cold, calculating, uncaring for the people she shrinks and will eventually kill. She's never understood things like love or happiness, at least not until she was given the power she has, which seems to not be limited to just shrinking, which will be explained a little later. She likes things nice, clean, and in order, and in a way, our job is that, but more importantly, she wants someone to talk to. Saeko is a broken person, using her powers for fleeting moments of joy, never thinking of how monstrous her acts are in the grand scheme. She kept eating and crushing humans, she shrank, but suddenly, a spanner was put in the works. Rin appeared. Rin was the first person that Saeko could relate to, and eventually Rin fell in love with her, something that made her uncomfortable. She's never had this before, so she decided to fix it by erasing his memory. I originally disliked that plot point, but the more I thought about it, it makes sense. Rin is the first person to make Saeko waver, and is the decider of the game's endings. You either fully indulge in her depraved behavior, saying you enjoyed your time with her, and she fully admits to what she did, wishing Rin would just be a regular tiny and die. But she ends up being happy that you came back to her, leading to use her power for you and both to tower over the city line, highly implying that she's going to destroy everything. A little overboard, but at that point, the only person she cares for is enabling her, and she's fully going with it. There are other interesting aspects, like a real interest in fantasy, where she's fully aware of the role she plays in everything, saying she'd be the villain, or at least isn't against it, wishing to see the world be destroyed. She also enjoys reading and calming music, but all that comes together for what I think is the greatest part of the game, the scene where you're honest with her. This is where you get locked into your specific endings. I've already brought up the path where you side with her, but the one where you stand up against her is even more fascinating. When Rin finally calls her on all the stuff that she's done, the countless deaths, we get a true look into her as a person. She admits that she knows that the thing she does is bad. In a way, she is guilty for the crime she committed, but it's an urge that she can't stop. The rush of killing someone who can't fight back is too much for her. But it's here where we get possibly the only glimpse of humanity in her. I wish somebody's smile could make me happy, like it does for other people. It only gets more interesting on the 7th day. If you decide to feed Akari, you won't have the appeal to satisfy Saeko, and she's angry. She threatens you, but Rin wants to put an end to it all, admitting fault for getting people ready to be sacrificed, even as somewhat enjoying it. But suddenly, Saeko gets emotional, trying to hold her feelings back. She cries. It's almost like the only piece of humanity she has started to surface. And in the end, the only way she could think to repent for all the death that she's caused is to die the same way, asking Rin to do it. Now, depending if you went to bed on the 7th night or actually talked to Saeko, will decide on her fate. The common ending is that you will kill her, and a time skip happens where it's revealed Rin is still doing his own twisted version, but with Peanuts showing the effect Saeko had left. And the ending, which I like to imagine is the definitive ending, he keeps her alive, and she spends the rest of her days tiny inside of a drawer. In a way, it's a life sentence, an atonement for her crimes, even if, being honest, the only way that she could really repent is if she died. There's a lot more to her character, but those are the main things. She's just a broken person on a power trip, and one person, so insignificant in scale, decides on if she'll be enabled or not. My friend said they made this game just for me, and some parts I can agree with that. I'm a sucker for stylized visual novels, and this is just another one, and well, other reasons, but I will admit, this game isn't for everyone. Its concept is batshit insane to a normal person. It has some pretty raunchy dialogue, but I think just calling it something like a fetish game is pretty demeaning, all things considered. The developers put a lot of heart into this game, and it shows in its art and music. Of course, the giantess aspect is there, and it will catch some people's eyes, mine included. It was everything else around it that made me stay. This game will be niche, but I enjoyed the time I had in Saeko's world. If I had to rate this game, I'd give it a 7 or a 3.5 stars. A part of this is bias, but I do think that depending on the person, they'll rate it likely harsher. But I really did enjoy everything, from the art style, music, characters. I just think it was a letdown by how linear it was in the grand scheme. While the game is fun on the first playthrough, it doesn't hold enough replay value to be worth getting more unique dialogue or new items. I played it 3 times for this review, and I got to a point where I wanted to just reload an old save to skip, but that's just my TLDR thoughts of this game. It's still really good. Thank you for watching this video. I really wasn't planning on making this video, but hopefully with its creation, it can leave my mind, at least for a while. If you enjoyed this video, I make other things, mainly JRPG and Dead by Daylight related content. And if that interests you, then why not like and subscribe? And if we hit 100 likes, I will unironically wear this shirt. With all that being said and done, have a wonderful day. Also, if you're watching this, developers, could you just release the whole soundtrack, please? That'd be great.